Using multiple generator outlets into the same panel.
Could you explain more? Are you wanting to have multiple outlets being fed from generator?
I've just purchased a Generac GP17500E generator. There are 4 main outputs. 150 amp 240, 130 amp 240, and 230 amp 120s. While the 50 amp plug giving main 12500 watts sounds great, I don't think it would power an AC along with things like a well pump, septic pump, etc. Plus it is well below the running watts of 17,500. This generator can also surge to 26,500 watts. So, can I hook the 50 amp 240 and the 30 amp 240 into my panel and use 80 amp breakers for each? The power is coming from the same turbine, so it should be in sync. I have located a company that makes custom UL listed interlocks that called make one that would lock out the 2 different breakers from the main. This would allow me to use the full potential of the generator. Without the central HVAC running, in north of 10,000 running amps. Add in the running amps of the AC and IM over the 12,500, not to mention the surge of my other appliances. Meant 10,000 watts, not amps.
You will not be able to hook up the 50 and 30 amp into the same panel. How many kW is the generator?
17.5 running, 26.5 surge. kW. Why can't it be done?
17.5 kW should give you 72 amps of power. Is this a portable or home standby?
As I mentioned above, it's a Generac GP17500E. It's on wheels. 72.91 amps to be exact.
In order to see if it will run the AC, I will need to know the maximum amps from the nameplate on the unit.
LRA is 69. Running is 16 amps.
So you have a big unit.
It's the biggest Generac makes. Surge is 26.5 kW. It's got some juice.
Running amps on the air is 16 amps.
Yes. Train unit.
The air is not the main thing to worry about. Do you use gas or electric heat?
I'm not an electrical novice. I've done all of the load estimating. I need more than 12,500 watts running. I don't see that hooking both outputs into the panel would cause a problem since the power is in sync. I just want to make sure that someone agrees or disagrees and why. When it comes to electricity, you cannot have enough opinions.
I have never seen it done from a generator. I do know that if a circuit is double fed on the same phase from your panel, it will work, but also trips the breaker of one, so I think this is the problem you will have. I would love to help you further with this if you have more questions.
Relist, answer quality. He had no experience and could not answer my question.
If there was a problem with my answer, why not express it to me? I didn't give you the answer you wanted to hear, but it is not safe and does not meet code to do the way you want to hook it up, and if that makes me unexperienced, then I am sorry, but I will not lead you in the wrong direction that would cause harm to you or your family. Hi, I'm Norm. As I understand it, you will plug a 4-wire cord end into your 50 amp receptacle on the generator, and connect a number 8 or number 6, depends on insulation, cable, run that to your panel and connect to a breaker. Then you will do the same thing with the 30 amp receptacle on the generator. I can't think of any reason not to as long as you have the interlock that prevents you from having either of those breakers closed while the main is closed. Unfortunately, there is no way to ensure that the two circuits will share the load proportionately. In other words, if you are drawing 70 amps total, most of it may well come down the 50 amp cable and trip that breaker in the generator. The way the current divides will depend on the resistance of the two cables and internal generator wiring, which will be very small and hard to predict. In the final analysis, I don't think it will work. The only way I can think of to get your full generator capacity is to have the manufacturer rewire it. Sorry. Norm 41127.44269100069.
Norm, thank you for the detailed response. Sounds like that while it can be done, there's a chance that resistance being what it is, it could conceivably pull more from one versus the other. I won't be unsafe electrically speaking, I just may blow a breaker constantly. I don't think there is an easy way, but is there a way to get as close as possible to identical resistance levels?
Hi again, my friend Mike G. Had a suggestion that would work. If you connect only the 50 amp circuit into the panel with the interlock, then make separate arrangements to connect your AC into the 30 amp circuit. You don't have to worry about current division. Another possibility is to establish a separate emergency panel with a fully rated transfer switch between it and the main, then connect all your critical circuits to the emergency panel. You can also purchase special transfer panels with branch circuits installed that give you a similar arrangement, possibly for less cost. Norm.
I left excellent service and really appreciate the detailed responses. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot. Let me know how it works out if you get time. Norm.
Norm, last follow-up. What size breakers would you use? The generator has a 30 and 50 amp breaker on it. Would you use 80 amp breakers for each in the panel or a 30 and a 50? I'm still thinking about the sub-panel but really want to lay out cost and options. Thanks again.
Hi again, there's no point in using larger breakers when you already have adequate protection in the generator. If you overload the 50 amp circuit, the 50 amp breaker will trip to protect the circuit. If you do this, 30 and 50 amp breakers will be adequate. The exact same issue came up on a Generac blog, http://answers.generac.com/answers/1506/_product/GP17500/Generac Power Systems GP17500E Watt Portable 49 State Questions Answers/questions.htm. Expand question equals 670. The customer was asking how to access the total output power of the generator without using multiple connections. They did not give the answer directly, but provided a link on that page that might help. It sounds like the generator can be wired by the factory to provide full output.
Norm, the supply house said that the best I can hope for is 60 amps as the current will split evenly. Do you concur? In reading back on what you said, and it appears that you advise against it due to resistance issues. I've spoken to Generac and they have confirmed that both outlets come off of the same winding, and they further confirmed that they will not change the wiring either at the factory or a service center. I guess it boils down to this. Your house, your generator which is here to stay, your family, what would you do?
I think I'd do what I actually did in my own home on a smaller scale. I found a used 60 amp transfer switch at a steam show flea market, bought a 12-space, 100 amp panel and connected it as an emergency panel with all your critical loads fed from that panel. A cord and plug permanently connected at the transfer switch will connect the generator safely. In your case, there would be 2 cord and plug assemblies connecting the transfer switch to the generator. The supply house said the current will split evenly, so I did some parallel load calculations and found that, in fact, the differing cable sizes are not significant. I was wrong about current division because of what Generac said about the 2 receptacles being connected to the same winding. So your original thoughts about 2 cables and breaker interlocks will work with one problem. You would end up with 2 male cord ends permanently connected to the panel. The interlock should make this safe, but it is not strictly correct according to the code. A transfer switch makes it all completely safe. Norm.
Norm, but will that give me 80 or 60 amps before breakers potentially start tripping? 2 male ends meaning I'd be backfeeding from 2 different lines.
This is an assist for Norm. Below is a sketch of the wiring suggested for the house loads and the AC off of the 30A and 50A outlets.
Mike, it looks like you're suggesting a 30 amp sub panel for the 30 amp HVAC breaker in lieu of 2 feeds into the main.
No, it is only a double poles double throw switch that acts as a transfer for only the AC. The panel interlock drops the utility power and allow for the 50A to feed the panel. The switch drops the panel and the power to the AC is the 30A. It is a simple double interlock. The cost will be much less and you get the availability to use all the circuits. If the load is too much, just shed some of the circuits.
Not having much luck finding a 220 30 amp DPDT. I like the idea though. Going back to my original question, do I get 60 or 80 amps by wiring them both into the panel?
According to your supplier, 60 amps total. I'm not sure why he said that. I suppose because if the load divides evenly, when you exceed 30 amps on each cord, the 30 amp breaker on the generator will trip. Try Allied Electronics online for the 30A. DPDT switch. Thanks for the help, Mike. Norm.
Norm, the guy was a desk jockey, definitely not an elec engineer like you. What say you? 80 or 60 or somewhere in between?
I'll stick with the 60 amp figure for the reasons above. Once you exceed 30 amps, the 30 amp breaker trips. Norm.
Thanks, guys. The left switch says it's panel mounted. Does that mean it goes in the load center like a breaker, or does it go in a separate box like you'd mount a light switch?
A separate box. Did you find one at Allied? Norm.
I did. I'm thinking the NKK SW3833 or the SW3823. Not sure whether I need a 2-pole or 3-pole. Do you think that these would work?
These look good. 2-pole is all you need. Norm. Here's the 30A DPDT switch. http://www.galesburgelectric.com/Leviton 1288 30A 120 to 277 volts double pole double throw center off AC quiet switch.html Mike G.41128.45058488727.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit JustAnswer.com/YTHI.